Good evening, participants. Good afternoon, rather. Welcome back to today's lecture. And as informed, due to some uh, emergency, we had to reschedule this lecture. And thank you for joining in. I'm sure you have spared your time from some other schedule of yours. So thank you for joining in. And today, I would rather appreciate the fact that you have joined because today we will be discussing some very important, sections of our schools and movements. And just to name a few, we have Bloomsbury Group that we will be discussing, stream of consciousness, new apocalyptics, southern agrarians, new criticism, magic realism, negritude. These are some of the topics that our resource person of the day, Dr. Nabanita Chakraborty, will be discussing with us. Some of you all are aware of Nabanita ma'am and her teaching pedagogy and skills, and that's the reason why I am reiterating the fact that you have done the right decision by joining in, irrespective of this sudden rescheduling of the lecture. On behalf of Team DAATH Voyage, I would like to welcome you, Dr. Nabanita ma'am. Thank you. In spite of some urgent work, you informed me, and we are able to have this lecture, which is very important for our students for their upcoming examinations. On behalf of Team DAATH Voyage, I would also like to introduce our resource person of the day, Dr. Nabanita Chakraborty, who is presently working as an associate professor of English at Hansraj College, University of Delhi. Her PhD was awarded in April 2018 by the University of Delhi on the topic titled Rhetoric of Love and Politics of Past Speeches and Writings of Queen Elizabeth I. She has been a Charles Wallace Fellow in 2013-14. Her recent publications include an article titled Reading Silence and History, Elizabethan Religious Settlement in Salesian Journal of Humanities and Social Sciences, and an essay writing the stigma text of Indenture, a close reading of Gatra Bahadur's Coolie Woman, Indentured and Post-Indentured Experiences of Women in the Indian Diaspora, which was edited by Amba Pandey and released by Springer in 2020. On behalf of Team DAATH Voyage, I would like to take the honor and opportunity to welcome. Thank you, ma'am, for volunteering for this particular lecture, irrespective of many assignments that you have that we are quite aware of. And I'm sure the participants today, we will have a cerebral feast without wasting much time. The platform is all yours, ma'am. Thank you once again.
Thank you so much, sir. I'm really, really honored to be a part of this. I've been already a part of this kind of a series and lecture series that you've been all the time, organizing. And I'm really sorry to all the participants as well as to you that I had to reschedule this lecture. I'm really sorry. There was an emergency and I really didn't want to miss the lecture. I'm so sorry. I hope
it's okay,
this will be worth it.
We value your commitment. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So we begin with the modernism. I wanted to show you a video of I think the link has been shared. It's of Charlie Chaplin's movie called Modern Times. It's one particular clip I wanted to show you. It's a very hilarious still actually from the Charlie Chaplin movie, which came out in 1936 called Modern Times. And here Chaplin is a little tramp and he is trying to fit sprockets with a winch in an assembly line in a factory. And the whole process is so mechanical that he starts imagining, you can see the machines and you can see the mechanical way in which he is actually tightening the screws. And he starts imagining the buttons of the skirt of a passerby lady as also sprockets and which needs to be tightened. And so he chases her down the road and so on. So it's quite hilarious. But the still actually reflects how the industry has dehumanized the tramp and has recalibrated his natural bodily rhythms. Charlie Chaplin is able to capture the widespread fear of the impact of speed and technology on the mind and body of the individual in the early 20th century. So when this particular lecture, we are trying to look at modernism and the modernist various movements in modernism across Europe, across America. And we are trying to see how each group of artists or intellectuals are trying to respond to the changes that are happening around this time. Because modernist literature is often also called the literature of crisis. because literature around this time, it's a crisis of war, it's a crisis of industrialization, mass market machinery, speed, with the help of speed and technology, new new kind of religious skepticism, urbanization, and of course the empire in some ways breaking down, or empires in some ways being challenged. Now, this particular lecture, therefore, will explore the different art and literature movement in the early 20th century to counter these forces of urbanization, war, industrialization, and rapid technology. So, while some schools and groups of writers, such as the Apocalypse and the New Critics, wanted to escape history, and politics through the use of art, through aesthetics, others, such as Southern agrarians and Black Caribbeans, they challenged technology, rapid industrialization, and forces of colonial history in their art. So, the effect of technology and war on modern consciousness has been expressed through various artistic ways. A classic example here would be this Hannah Hawke's photo montage. It is a photo montage of, it's called The Beautiful Girl. It came out in 1919, 1920. So post First World War, which juxtapose which juxtaposes here a decapitated girl with random mechanical parts, as you can see, car parts are there. There are lots of car parts, and there is a light bulb, and there is a pocket watch, and the artist uses clippings from car advertisements and female figures from the magazine to illustrate the dehumanization of man and woman in an age of industry. What Charlie Chaplin was trying to show is the same thing being reflected here in the photo montage, where the whole idea of dehumanization of man and woman, the mechanical lives that we are living in an age of industry, in an age of machine and speed. The collage here signifies, therefore, the perception of a modern, sexually liberated new woman conflicted with the real experiences of women in post war Germany. Germany, because Hannah Hawke is from Germany. Hawke's artwork, therefore, captures this kind of a dystopia which was felt by women living in a war ravaged world. Now, this study on modernism therefore traces the cultural and aesthetic revolution during the first 4 decades of 20th century in response to the in response to a period of social and cultural upheaval that was taking place, precipitated, of course, by the First World War, but also because there was a crisis in empire, industrialization, technological innovation, and so on. There are these telegraph poles, for instance. For the first time, telegraph comes in, and telephones come in. So it changes the way in which communication happens. It changes the way in which we look at space or time, and so on. So modernist artist is modernism is actually a cultural and aesthetic movement which was trying to exploring we are going to explore the works of avant-garde artists, the movements and the challenges. Though the modernists self-consciously were trying to bring about a cultural revolution or cultural renovation, there is a little agreement as to how it ought to be done. Therefore, you will find that each group of artists are constantly, although the aim is the same, that how to reflect the changing reality through how to reflect the new crisis that is taking place, but the ways in which it is expressed are very different, in different groups, as we see. So each group of writers therefore saw itself as a cultural vanguard, whose task was actually to challenge the conventional aesthetic form and therefore offer a new vision. And that is why it is called modernism, where something new is coming out, a new way. And so it's a very self-conscious artistic expression, as we can see, by self-consciously rejecting the conventional forms of expression conventional forms of artistic expression, and therefore bringing in a new way of depicting the reality or depicting the truth. Now, I hope the slides are visible to you. I'm on my third slide. When was modernism? Is the slide visible?
Yes, ma'am, it's visible. Please
yeah, okay. So so the questions that we are going to raise here are therefore, is modernism therefore a time-bound period, or located in the period between 1890 to 1930? Do we need to say that any work, any literary text which came out, or artistic text which came out around the period or between the period of 1890 to 1930 can be termed as modernist? Or is it actually a certain kind of, as I said, a cultural revolution or aesthetic revolution that the artist was trying to, a new way of representing reality, which would define its modernist tendencies? So is it that all texts that are written around this time? But we can also see that modernism is actually quite a rupture, therefore, from the Victorian aesthetics and culture. Faced with loss of faith, we've already seen the wavering of faith in Victorian period. If you read Arnold's Dover Beach or so, you find the wavering of the faith. So by early 20th century, with war, with industrialization, with capitalism, there is also this complete, in a way, a loss of faith, of reason, of empire. The artist therefore felt a crisis of representation. And realism as a mode of mimetic representation, which was seen during the Victorian period or Edwardian period, that realism was therefore challenged. Because what is realism? Realism is uh, trying to depict the verisimilitude of life, by depicting very, very minute details of life. It's a mimetic reproduction of life. But so the artist in 20th century realized that it's not just the material reality which needs to be depicted, but there is probably a different kind of reality that we need to understand. And what is that kind of reality? The reality of consciousness, of perception, of emotions, of thought processes, and so on. Modernism on the other, so can modernist writing be seen also as a response to any kind of crisis that was taking place? There has been a criticism from the postmodernist about modernist artists very frequently, which talk about how modernists are mainly, predominantly, the art of the white, male, heterosexist, Euro-American, upper middle class writers. So, we are not, for instance, even women writers or black writers, did not get much space. There are some women writers who were taken in as modernist writers. Much later, their works were added into the anthologies, which, whether it's poetry anthology or novels or so on. So therefore, it is very often seen to be criticized to be very elitist, very white, upper class, upper middle class, heterosexist, Euro-American writers writing a particular kind of literature, or writing, or some kind of artwork. The writers, however, all acknowledge the urge to represent the irrational impulses and fleeting thought processes of the mind. Because Freud's theory had come in by then, psychoanalytic theories, theory of the psyche, and the conception of the self, which influenced a number of different, which influenced the surreal movement of France, the Bloomsbury Group of England, and the Negritude movement also to some extent of France. So the modernist literature therefore explored the sexual politics and the gender relations of this new age. And modernism can therefore be conceived as a set of discursive practices which challenged literary conventions like realism. While the realist authors had tried to get the reader's empathy with the lifelike characters, very, very situations and lifelike. The modernists are trying to provoke a disruption of the conventional silent agreement between the artist and the recipient, or the audience, for instance. So this is what Virginia Woolf had to say in an essay called Mr. Bennett and Mrs. Brown, that on or about December 1910, human character changed. The change was not so sudden or definite like that. All human relations, and then she goes on to talk about how the Victorian cook lived like a leviathan in the lower depths, formidable, silent, obscure, inscrutable. But the Georgian cook is a creature of sunshine and fresh air and so on. And then she goes on to talk about how all human relationships have changed or shifted, those between masters and servants, between husbands and wives, between parents and children. Now, therefore, there is definitely a kind of a rupture that she's talking about, which has taken place all of a sudden from the Victorian setup, or a Victorian cultural, social setup. And why this arbitrary date of 1910, December 1910? Can we take this as the advent of modernism as identified by Woolf? Or is it because, why is it? Maybe because, you know, maybe because in 1910 is important also because it was the death of King Edward. So the Edwardian era getting more or less the notable events of the year were the death of King Edward, and therefore Edwardian era almost getting over, marking a shift from the Edwardian age to the Georgian period. It is also the time. It's also the year in which the Labour Party rises to power amidst a hung parliament in the 1910 general elections. There is also a feminist militancy which comes out on 18th November, when police actually rounded up all the suffragists who were demanding for the equal right to vote, and in the Parliament Square in London, and they all retaliated to that. But the landmark event, I think, which Virginia Woolf is talking about, was actually the exhibition that was held in 1910 December in London, which was titled Manet and the Post-Impressionist, and it was organized by Roger Fry mainly and some of the Bloomsbury Group. We'll come to the Bloomsbury Group in a little while. Now, this event actually seemed to herald modernism in some ways for Woolf, with a new approach to capture the change in the human character, as she says, human character change in the early 20th century. The previous mode of expression in art and literature was mimesis, was verisimilitude, was realism. But modernism marked a movement, a shift in this movement, undermining the realist forms of art. So this Manet and the post-impressionist painting exhibition, we'll just talk in 2 minutes time, but it kind of showcased the works of different French artists who were called impressionist and post-impressionist: Cézanne, Matisse, Picasso, Gauguin, and Van Gogh, and others. The audience were horrified and exhilarated both at the same time looking at the paintings, because they were so different from the realist paintings or the kind of portrait paintings that had, that was so very popular or common during the Victorian and Edwardian age. So the organizers of the exhibition were the, so we are talking about this in December 1910. Therefore, this organized Roger Fry, Clive Bell, and Desmond McCarthy. They organized this post-impressionist exhibition. In music also, we see there is a different kind of atonalism. In art, we find post-impressionism, cubism, symbolism, surrealism. In fiction, we find stream of consciousness and a kind of psychological reality, and so on. So all different art forms were actually trying out different ways of representing reality. Now let's move on to the Bloomsbury Group. Who are the Bloomsbury Group? If you This was actually an intellectual and social coterie of British writers, painters, critics, and there was one economist who was living during this interwar years between the First World War and Second World War, and they came together to share their ideas about aesthetics, about philosophy, psychology, art, literature, and so on. Some of these important names are Clive Bell, Vanessa Bell, E.M. Foster, Roger Fry, Duncan Grant, Maynard Keynes, Leighton Strachey, Molly McCarthy, Toby Stephen, Leonard Woolf, Virginia Woolf were the members, the primary members. There were some others who joined in. And so this is a picture that you can see, a photograph of Vanessa Bell with her family and friends in a garden in a farmhouse in Sussex. So these are only some of them. And so these people were all from different, what is very interesting to see, they were all from different disciplines, and they all came together as friends, but they were all from Cambridge, and apart from Virginia and Vanessa, who were women, and therefore they were not a part of Cambridge University, because Cambridge University at that time was only for men. And Toby Stephen, who was Virginia Woolf's and Vanessa Bell's brother, he went to Cambridge and he met these men in Cambridge. And when he met them, he formed a friendship with them, and he invited them to their house in Bloomsbury. And that is why every Thursday after that, these group of friends used to meet every Thursday evening in the house of Toby Stephen, Virginia Woolf. And so these friends, when they came to Toby's house, they met Virginia and Vanessa there, and they started having intellectual, artistic, and other kinds of discussions. And it became a kind of routine where they were all from Trinity and King's College friends, and they became to be known as the Bloomsbury Group. Because they were meeting in that house. Later on, of course, Virginia Woolf's father passed away and they had to shift to a new house, but the group still kept on being called Bloomsbury Group. So it started in 1905, and money, and they were all coming from upper middle class families, and therefore money and connection shielded them from direct wartime problems or wartime deprivations. But nonetheless, of course, there were some misadventures which happened. Vanessa and Clive's son, he died while being an ambulance driver during the war. And Virginia Woolf and Leonard Woolf's house was bombed partially during the war. So it's not as if they were not affected by the war, but because of connections, because of money, they were shielded mostly. They didn't have to, they were not affected by the war in a vast way. And besides the Thursday evening meetings in Bloomsbury, Vanessa also started the Friday Club. So very soon after, they started meeting also on Friday to discuss aesthetics and literature. And one of the significant contributions was actually organizing this post-impressionist painting exhibition coming out from those Friday meetings. Roger Fry was an established art critic at that time, and he was already writing in the columns of Athenaeum. And his various lectures on Italian art had come out in different journals. And he had also started writing an essay on Impressionism, which is an essay on aesthetics, which prepared the ground in some ways for displaying the works of French artists in London exhibition. Now, after the post-impressionist exhibition, Fry also toured various countries, France, Greece, Turkey, to write on the lives of the artists Cézanne and Matisse, while Clive Bell also focused on Proust and French painting. Vanessa Bell and Duncan Grant, they started their own workshop or their own furniture shop, actually. So this uh, Maynard Keynes wrote The Economic Consequences of the Peace. So he was an economist, and so all of them were making a lot of contributions around this time. Both in literature as well as in others. So the interdisciplinarity of this particular group is, I think, the first of its sort, and it's very interesting to see the way in which they were all coming from their own disciplines and trying to see the similarities and the differences, and writing with the influence of each other. Vanessa Bell and Duncan Grant, as I said, were so impressed by the post-impressionist painting exhibition that they started transforming their own art. And their paintings, instead of being on the canvas, now started happening on different objects, on furniture, on walls, and very bright colors. They opened a very new experimental furniture shop, which was called Omega Workshop, which actually scandalized people, because there were nude figurines, there were bright red colors on furniture, and there were something which others had not seen before this. So it's something which was very experimental and extremely rebellious to the taste of the Victorian uh, audience or people. Virginia and Leonard Woolf also founded the Hogarth Press, which was actually the first press to come out with the English translation of Freud's books, Interpretation of Dreams and other things. So, it was a very important press, where, of course, Virginia Woolf's own texts were also printed, but other texts were printed. Leonard Woolf joined the Labour Party. He became a politician. He wrote on economic imperialism. And E.M. Forster and Virginia Woolf also shaped British literary modernism, as we know. So the idea is that both Roger Fry and Vanessa were also very critical of literature, because of the medium, that is language, operated through a web of associations and significations. And according to Vanessa Bell and Roger Fry, in literature, it is not possible to have that kind of, because of a very linear chronological narrative form in literature, it is not possible to have too much of experimentation, according to Fry. Virginia Woolf took up this challenge, and she started writing novels which actually questioned or challenged this kind of a chronological linear narrative form. It also challenged space and time. She started writing novels which only were about, not even spanning 24 hours, and which experimented a lot with time and space. So this kind of revolution that could happen also through multiple textures, through designs, through rhythm, all that was happening, not just in language and painting, but also through other, in architecture, in art, in music, and in other ways. So for instance, if you look at Kew Gardens, Virginia Woolf's earlier text, it experimented with not just the language, but also with a painterly use of colors and designs, because they had their own press at home, the Hogarth Press. Leonard Woolf and Virginia Woolf was able to experiment with even the design of the book, and with woodcuts, and made by Vanessa, and it came out in beautiful colors and designs. So it was in a very different sort of experience for the readers also, to not just read the text, but also look at it. Was a visual treat too, for them. So if we look at their ideologies, we can see that the Bloomsbury Group members shared a commitment to pacifism. They all believed that war was unnecessary and should be stopped immediately. In fact, Virginia Woolf writes an essay which is called Three Guineas. If you have a time, please do read that essay. It's a brilliant essay where she talks about pacifism, and she talks about that how women, she brings in feminism and pacifism, and she tries to talk about how women are not even asked, whether war should continue or not, because it's supposed to be a political matter in the realm of male domain, and so on. So Duncan Grant and Lytton Strachey, they applied their status as conscientious objector to the objector status during the World War I, because of which they did not have to join the army. They did not have to join the war, and they were assigned instead farm work, in lieu of the military work that they were supposed to do. The group was also very committed to social reform because of the Victorian age, the prudishness of Victorian age, the conventional, very conventional orthodox beliefs of Victorian age was something that the Bloomsbury Group was trying to challenge through their writings, through their interactions, and so the members reacted against the hypocrisy and the inhibition of the Victorian age. And you can see that many of them were talking about Foster, for instance, and others are talking about homosexuality and other. So this is one example of the kind of conversation that they had, which is written down by Virginia Woolf. It's a very interesting bit that Virginia Woolf writes down about one of their evening conversation, a slice of life from their bohemian lifestyle of the Bloomsbury Group. Vanessa sat silent and did something mysterious with her needle or her scissors. Suddenly, the door opened, and the long and sinister figure of Lytton Strachey stood on the threshold. He pointed a finger at a stain on Vanessa's white dress. "Semen?" he said. "Can one really say it?" I thought, and we burst out laughing. With that word, all barriers of reticence and reserve went down. A flood of the sacred fluid seemed to overwhelm us. Sex permeated our conversation. The word bugger was never far from our lips. Bugger is a term for homosexuals. So you can see that the way in which it is written is that Virginia Woolf is almost parodying a Victorian narrative, a Victorian novel narrative where the woman would be sitting in front of the fireplace and would be stitching or doing some needlework, and then the men would come, and the kind of decent conversation that would happen. But instead of the decent conversation, the conversation actually, so the setup is very similar to the Victorian, but it's a parody of the Victorian life. And so it's all the decorum and the decency and polite conversations are done away with, and among these intimate friends who had very different kind of conversation, where they were constantly talking about sexuality, about things which otherwise was not supposed to be talked about. Yeah. So this is one example. It's a parody of the Victorian domestic life, and it gives us a good we understand how these Bloomsbury Group artists were trying to be different and trying to be revolutionary in their own ways. Uh, Naturally, the Bloomsbury Group was criticized a lot because the private lives of the members have been of interest. You can see already Leonard and Virginia married each other, Vanessa and Clive married each other. They also had relations outside their marriages. And so they flouted conventions with their bohemian lifestyle. They espoused homosexuality, carried on with extramarital relations, and they have been seen, therefore, to have in a way breaking from the Victorian orthodox lifestyle to a certain version of very modern, free, independent spirit. And by their lifestyle, in their writings, you will find how, and therefore they were very often criticized as being very elitist, as being extremely loose and independent. So that so the detractors of Bloomsbury Group has often criticized the way in which the modern free spirit that has been expressed by the Bloomsbury Group.